Hey guys, it's Alex again, and this week we're going to do a design with me, and we are updating these. This is the St. Patrick's Day set. I made these a full year ago. What? I still blows my mind that this is a year old. I remember designing these. I also know that I can do a bajillion times better now. Pot of gold. I think I'm going to go with the pot of gold first. Just kind of show you the basic shapes. And if we have time, I might do the leprechaun. I like to keep these a little short so I don't bore you, excuse me, bore you guys to death. So what I did is I just took a circle and I picked a gray. And now I'm selecting one of the points with the direct select tool. So that's A. And I'm pinching it down to give it that, because it's going to go behind, and so I just bring it down. I really found I love manipulating circles for things. Because it keeps everything crisp. So rather than try to hand draw a perfect orb, I've now got a perfect pot, and then I just build off of that. So the next thing we're going to do is give it a top of the morning to you. And that's going to need to be a darker color, and so I'm going to do that, and then now we can adjust it. So zooming in using the Alt and Scrolly bar allows us to zoom in and out without having to change our tool. Holding down the space bar allows us to move around on the field or our on our art, and then V gives us the select tool, and that lets us go ahead and select an object and move it around. So now we've got a good looking little cauldron, but we're nowhere near done. Let's give this cauldron a lip, and we can do that by, I'm going to duplicate this shape and put it right on top. I'm going to go with a different color for it. I'm going to use Control left bracket, which will send it back one, so now it's behind. And I'm going to try and select it. And holding Shift and Alt, I'm going to drag the shape. And what that's going to do is, one, it's going to keep the ratio exactly perfect, but instead of just going off on one side, Alt lets it go off that center point. I know a lot of these tips and tricks are starting to get a little redundant, but that's the point, is that it is a lot of the same things going on each time. So now we've got our shape. We could leave it at that, but I want to give it a little more style, so I'm going to come in and manipulate our circle a bit. So first I'm going to take this point here and bring it down. And that will give us a nice edge there. I think this looks a little not roundy enough here. So that brings that, and let's bring that point in. And this is fine, we could leave it as is, but just because I know it's going to be small as anyways, I'm going to over exaggerate the back, and then I'm going to try and copy all that kind of stuff I did over here. So bring it in, kind of bring the circle out a little. It doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, it can be if you really want it to be, but I have a thing about, I kind of like a little bit of unbalancedness. It gives it a little fun. So yeah, that's the beginning of a pot. One thing I might do is move it down a little, kind of give it a better rim look. Now we'll highlight everything, and we're going to align it center, but I almost made a mistake. Don't want to use this tool to highlight. You're going to want to use the V, the direct select tool, which selects them as objects, not points, and then align them, and that way everything's perfectly lined up, and you look like you're a magical, very attention to detail magician, and really all you've done is lined them up in a straight line. So we want to give it some dimension. So we got to pick a light source. That's the first important thing. I always tend to do top right, just because it's easier to get in a groove like that, where you always do light from the same direction. And if you wanted to change the light source, you can always flip the object, and it's not always going to be in the same spot top right. It really depends how you do the shading. So first thing we're going to need to do is take these objects, and there's 3 of them now, the 2 legs and the object. We're going to use Pathfinder, and how you open up Pathfinder is, I have it in my toolbars right here. It's this one with the 2 squares overlapping, but if you didn't, you can go to Window, and you can pull up your Pathfinder. There's also a shortcut because it is a tool that's used a lot. So it's open. You've got shape modes and Pathfinder, and this is a really powerful tool. I don't always use them all as much as I could. I forget a lot of the times that it's there, so I'll spend a lot of time designing, can't get something right, and then I'll be like, oh, I could do it this way with Pathfinder. So that's how that would work. So for example, one way, if we wanted this inside the lip to be perfectly balanced instead of eyeballing it, what you do is you'd make your shape, get it perfectly on one side, take Pathfinder, draw a square over it, and I can kind of give you a demo here. So so if I wanted both sides to be perfectly the same, I'll take this shape, find the center, draw this over it, so that's about center there. I didn't do it exactly right, and you could minus front selection. So you got to select your objects and then minus, and it's going to minus the front object from behind. And this can get really, you have to get really creative with it, but you can do a lot of cool things for making patterns or making shapes that aren't super easy. But the next step we would do is, and see, it still treats it as though it's one object because they're grouped, so you can ungroup it now and treat them as individuals. But you can take this, move it over here, transform, reflect, hit OK, line them back up exactly because you know they're going to be from the same part, and now we've got a perfect, exactly mirrored image off of each other. So if you want that perfection, that symmetry, you could totally do it that way. And it also saves you when you're designing, let's say you're designing a face, you can only do the left side and flip it over to the right. Let's say you're trying to design, actually this type of thing is something I learned in 3D printing when you're making a part. And let's say you're making a faceplate or some kind of gap thing, and you wanted to put 4 circles in each corner. What you would do is you would divide the shape into 4s, figure out what this size was, put the square there. Once you have a corner of the shape, you can flip it, flip it, flip it, and that's how you get a perfect, no mistake shape. And that just kind of flowed over to Illustrator. It's a lot of the same thinking. So Pathfinder, take these, we're going to merge it together so it's one shape. And so now these legs are a part of the basin. And now we're using control back, but if you didn't want to do that, you could right click and arrange and send back or send backward. And the difference, although they're similar, this one sends it to the farthest back. This is the last layer that we want. Send back just puts it behind 1. So we're going to send 2 back, and that's why we use the shift instead of just control bracket. Control shift bracket sends it all the way. So now we've got this shape. It's one shape, and the reason why, I'll show you, we're going to come in here and draw inside the shape, take our pen tool, and what that means is as long as we're drawing inside, anything we do outside of the shape isn't going to show up in the image, and that's super useful for doing these little inside shadows. And you do have to finish it up outside. And so, for example, we're going to we want it to be slightly darker gray. Don't want to go too dark, so that's a good in between. And it also gives us a shape we can adjust later. So I know I actually want to come in here. I want to turn this to a point that I can adjust with these handlebars. And so I do that by being in the direct select tool, selecting the path, and then clicking this. If I want to go back to a sharp corner, I can click that. But this lets me get these handles and adjust the curve of that line. I want to do that because it's a little tubby here. The shape is. There we go. So now we've got that shape, and that kind of shows the lights coming from almost front but to the top right. And since we do have this lip, I'm going to try and extend that shape. Normally I would stop, but to show that the lip is actually move the image date. We're going to select, come on here, buddy. We're going to take this, we're going to curve it, and we're going to bring it over here like that. What that's going to do is let me pick up that pen tool, start back off this point, and that's what that slash was when I put the pen tool over it. And I'm going to just follow this edge up to here. The shadow would lessen, and then that actually looks good. So let's see how that looks. Not too bad. I might want to move this point so it looks a little more natural with the curves. And there you go. So now what we've done is the light's coming from above, it's going to cast a lip, and that lip makes this jump off the page. It gives it a little depth. And then by having this tubby part here, the bottom pot belly, you know, kind of look, that also pushes that back. So it curves it back, and then it also pushes out the front lip. So that's kind of nice. And then, you know what? Because it is metal, it could have a shine to it. So let's go ahead over here and just give it a little shine. And all I'm doing is just drawing a straight line right there. That almost looks fine, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to select white as my color. And it's because I do this all the time if you guys watch. This is the fill color, and this is the line color, or the stroke. And you'll notice the stroke is dark here, and then it filled in. So I'm actually going to swap those. Now you've got the darker. Take my direct editing tool, or my editing tool, not direct editing tool, direct select. I'm going to cancel the fill. So now we've got that nice white line, and we're going to go up here, and with the, again, selection tool is what gives you access to this panel. And this panel is going to let you edit certain features about your line or the stroke. So we're going to make it nice and thick. And some people do like this flat end, some people like it rounded, and you can adjust that by going into stroke, but I like neither. And we're going to come in and do that. I find it's a super simple trick. Comes in, gives it a shine, and now all we have to do is go over to opacity and drop that down. With lighter colors, you don't want to go too much, but now we've got a super sweet little pot ready to go. And I'm going to want to fill this pot with gold. So what I'll do for that is I'll end up just making a gold coin. So we'll take the top shape. We'll make sure we select a nice gold color. We don't want to stroke. So now we've got this nice gold coin. And it's not a full gold coin, it's just the top. Alt, Shift, drag down. So Alt will let me duplicate it. Shift will keep it in one of the main 45-degree. I can't go off, so that's way I can go straight up and down. And we'll say that's good thickness for a gold coin. And this is another way to use Pathfinder. Start on one of the points, go to the other point where it locks in, go up, and bam, we've got the inside of our gold coin. And now what we're going to want to do is select the two, not the top, to merge. And the reason being is the edges of our gold coins should be a slightly different color. And the top is behind the layer that I'm working on, so I'm going to use Control right bracket to bring it forward. And we've got ourselves one slick looking gold coin. If we wanted to play with the light a little more, we could even come over here and do gradient. And what gradient will let us do is come in and pick a color. So for the, stop it. Let us come in and pick a color and then move it to another color. I always have a hard time in this tool because I don't use it enough. And then you can adjust the gradient. So with a coin, you might want to do something like that. And I know it's black and white right now, but we can go over to our swatch menu and pick a maybe not as light color. Come over here. Now that we've got the color picked, darken it just a bit, not too much, by adding K stands for key, and key means black, and that's a printing term, CMKY, CMYK, and that's cyan, magenta, yellow, and key, which is black. So those are the four main colors you need when you're printing, which you might know if you buy a lot of ink, or ink ever, which always feels like you have to buy a lot because it's so expensive. Then we can come over here, double click, open this up, and we can go ahead and select darker color, and back over here, drop the key on it. And so now we're giving our coins a nice gold kind of light look. We could do it for the top two, but it really does make it look kind of 3D and pop off the screen, which again for this style may not be right, but I just thought I'd kind of show you guys. So now I'm going to go back to what we could have done, or what I would have easily done, and just change the color and keep it there. Still gives the representation that there's a shadow, but it's also not super bad. Honestly, my biggest issue is I kind of don't like the gold, this burnt gold looking, so I'm going to change these colors. Try and yellow it up a little, give it a more richer gold tones. And so how this works, by the way, your color picker, this is all the colors, it's called a gamut, runs the gamut. All the colors that your computer can produce. And then, so at the top is the most pure, like brightest bright color. That's the brightest blue in that shade you're going to get. But if you move down, you will get more key or more black involved. And if you want lighter, that's what this slider here does, is actually does the opposite and turns the top white, and so that's changing your tint. So between those two, you pick your tint here, you pick the color here, and then you go up and down if you want to, darken that. So again, we're going back to gold. Our starting color is held beneath it, so it looks like right there, and we're just going to go over a little, make it a little nicer gold. Little too spot on, Alex. And there's more ways than one way to adjust the color. Every color has a hex key, and that's this here. So if you ever, let's say you're making a brand or you have a logo and you want it to always use the same color. So for us, our poppy dark red that we use in our designing things is hashtag A11B1B. And that will give you our deep poppy red. And then we have a golden yellow, which, here, I'll give you an example. It might even work here. FFD000, and that represents a coordinate on that map. And it's not dark enough. But that kind of shows you how the colors change and it remembers everything. So if you're ever trying to stay consistent, that's one way to kind of keep it. Oh, I'm not selecting it, that's why. Whoops! All that conversation. There we go. That looks like a better boolean to me. So we're going to highlight it. Control G is a shortcut to group it. So what grouping does is, so when you go to move the shape with your select tool, you're moving them together and they're not separate. So for the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use a Pathfinder tool to load this up with gold coins. But the trick is, how do we get our gold coins to fit along here so they look like they're inside? And of course we could try and highlight the image, copy the shape, put it inside, and go around, and that's one way to do it. The other is to use your Pathfinder tool. And so we're going to select these two, and we're going to use one of these Pathfinders, which will divide the shape. And so we're going to use divide, and it looks like it did nothing, but it's done a whole lot for us. And what it's done is come in, and anytime a line crossed another line, it basically created a new shape there. So if you want to do one of those avant-garde paintings where it's your face and then it's a lot of lines through it and then each square is a different color, like you did back in school, you draw a shape and then just kind of shade in each one a different color, like the scribble. That's kind of the idea here. So coming in, you can select this. Oh, come on. We're going to double click on it, which is because it's grouped, it's being a little difficult, which will pull this shape forward. And then now it will double click again and it will pull this part forward, and we just want it gone. So if we go back, now it looks like we've got a gold coin sitting inside the rim, but if you go to move that gold coin, I'm going to group these two. If you go to move that gold coin, you'll notice that it is noticeably missing from our former shape. So that's one perk to doing it. It's also a great way to get it done real quick. But if you wanted to adjust and play with it, you could copy your gold coin. So I'll go back to before we've done the divide. So here, copy your gold coin, click this, draw inside, Control V, it will accomplish a very similar effect. And you can just load this up with gold coins around the edge. Leave a little bit of black to show it's still dark. I hit the wrong button. But that will show us that, and then you can just pile up on top, getting out of this mode. Because the issue is if you wanted to show a pile of gold coins, I am having the hardest day selecting things. If you wanted to show a pile of gold coins, it won't show past the back. So that's why I left that one gold coin out in the front here, because then I can go ahead and stack up on top and make ourselves a nice pot of gold. So that's going to be it for the pot of gold. I might throw a shamrock on here or something just to, you know, give it a little bit of holiday flair. But that's it for the pot of gold. I still might film separate me making a leprechaun. So yeah, might be the next one. Or I don't know. If you guys want something different, please leave it in the comments. Tell me what to make. This is also a great opportunity that if you want a sticker made, leave it in the comments here because I come back and check it, and I will probably make that sticker. So, wink wink. Although a lot of people send me stuff on Facebook and it gets buried and then I can't find it and I forget because I'm bad at things. But I'll go ahead and do this, make duplicates of this, fill the rim, pile on the gold, and you'll see that probably before you click down this video where I do one of these things and try and show that I'm clever. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. That's my design with me. Like the video, hit subscribe if you haven't, and thanks for watching. Bye, guys.